As you know, we have today 2 customer story keynotes. Customers who are taking the time out to join us on stage to share their experiences. In other words, to let you know how they've found success facing exactly the same challenges and opportunities that you face. And we're going to explore the first of those customer stories right now. To help me do it, though, please welcome to the stage Scaled Agile CMO, Mike Clarkin. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Mark.
How's it going?
Great to be here. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, we're great. We're very happy to see you. Mike, tell us a bit more about what we're about to hear.
You know, if you've ever worked for a big company or worked with a big company, you're going to relate to this story. This is one of those high stakes, big visibility. If it works, it's great. If not, kind of moments.
Right.
It's just so fun. My favorite part of the summit is customer stories. So let's bring it on stage, Mark, can we?
Absolutely.
My colleagues from Oracle, Don Kwan, Richard Jack, and Maninder Bedi.
Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. How are you? Richard, good to see you as well. Thank you so much. Maninder, excellent. Take a seat.
Thank you.
Now, I like titles, Mike. What do you think? Should we do titles?
We can do titles. Let's give it a shot. Don, tell us a little bit about what you do at Oracle, would you please?
Yeah, good morning. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to be able to share our story today. I'm Don Kwan. I am the Senior IT Director within the Oracle Applications Lab, the organization we're going to talk about today that was responsible for implementing our finance systems onto the cloud.
Nice.
Excellent.
Richard.
And I'm Richard Jack. I am SPC, one of the trainers, safe trainers in Oracle Application Labs, and I'm an IT Director for the Lean Agile PMO.
Thank you very much. Maninder.
Hi, good morning. My name is Maninder Bedi. I'm the VP for Finance. I manage Oracle's revenue line of businesses, majorly all, excluding consulting. My charter is basically to work with the IT, our internal teams, to simplify processes and build agility in the organization.
Fabulous, thank you. I'm going to set the scene if it's all right. Mike started it, so I want to add a little bit more detail. So you all know the situation. Company urgently needs to replace one of its core systems, the ERP, the CRM, something else. And we all know the stats and the stories. Only a fraction get completed on time, and even fewer deliver all the value that was hoped for. Now, imagine you are this team. You are Oracle, a world-leading provider of exactly this type of critical enterprise, enabling system in the cloud. And now imagine that you need to migrate your entire order-to-revenue systems to the cloud. The company calls this Oracle on Oracle, drinking their own champagne to show the market how it's done. For a bit more detail, take a look at this. Which should be a video.
Hi, my name is Doug Herring, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Corporate Operations at Oracle. Since joining over 20 years ago, I've had the pleasure of seeing multiple business and technology cycles that have impacted our company. But the move to the cloud and the shift to services-based technologies has really been the most transformative, most positively disruptive, and most impactful one that I've experienced. It's given our company a great opportunity to change and lead in this new environment. I'd like to explain more about that story and how any business in any industry, anywhere around the world, can likewise benefit from a similar transformation. In shifting from selling on-premise products that are installed and generally not updated for years on end to selling cloud services that are automatically updated with new capabilities every quarter, we've had to reimagine both how we engage our customers and how we operate. The adoption of our own cloud technologies to run our company gives us a unique opportunity to show others how we have achieved amazing outcomes, including realizing tremendous cost and operational efficiencies, making better and faster decisions, increasing our agility, and delighting our employees and customers. In addition, it enables us to share lessons learned and best practices with others so they can maximize the value of the Oracle Cloud. We call this philosophy and practice Oracle at Oracle.
There you go. It's the company message, Oracle and Oracle. So if I understand this, Don, correctly, your CEO says, 2 years, we need to rip and replace the existing order to revenue system, right?
That's right.
Move it to the cloud so we're not on premise anymore.
Yes.
2 years, that kind of didn't sound like an Agile project to me. That sounds like a waterfall project to me. How did you decide to go at it a different way?
Yeah, so a little backdrop to this migration to the cloud. This particular implementation of our finance systems to the cloud is part of our Journey to the Cloud initiative. It's a multi-year initiative that had been going on. So before the order to revenue migration, we had just completed our supply chain management migration to the cloud using the waterfall model. I led that program. It was very painful from a model perspective. As we can all understand in this community here, the sequential, the phase approach in gathering requirements, design, implementation, and that has always been the traditional way of apps implementation for many companies. But it was a quite painful process because we implemented a very complex system. So I had this one question at the end of the implementation, which was, there has to be an easier way. About the same time, and this was around the fall of 2018, and our CEO, our vice president of our group, decided to implement SAFe throughout our entire organization. Now,
So that's Oracle Applications Lab.
Oracle Applications Lab, and that's only because Richard had launched SAFe within one of our pillar organizations, and he had laid the foundation. I'm sure Richard planted a bug in his ear and said, "This is the way to go," and there we went. So I was skeptical, and I went to my first SAFe training, which was my SPC training. So I went cold turkey.
Nice.
And I went in with one thought in mind: will this framework work? I know the mandate is to implement SAFe. I just came from the supply chain migration, which was very, very difficult, and so in the SAFe training they talk about hypotheses, and it's a scientific approach, and I used that approach for the 5 days of training, and at the end I came out with the conclusion: yes, this framework can work. It can scale. So that sort of launched ourselves into this journey, we went light speed, and that was like November timeframe of 2018, and then we turned the corner in 2019. The first week, right after the New Year's, we met. All the teams met in a very large ballroom at Oracle, and we groomed the MVP implementation backlog that our CEO office had approved just only a month ago. Now this was a MVP backlog, not necessarily the program backlog that we would use for our PI planning. We spent a week there, and it was quite a mindset change, right? To convince the audience, no, you don't prioritize using this way, you prioritize using WSGIF. They're like, what's WSGIF, right? and it was a big mindset, but that really, I think that launched the start of our change in mindset. And then literally, we handed off the backlog to Richard, who led the PI planning for the very first time.
I want to ask can I ask a quick follow-up? You said you went into training really skeptical. A lot of people in this audience have execs within their organizations who are also very skeptical. Yeah. Any tips on how to win people over? You were won over,
yes,
but you have a certain way of thinking.
Yes.
Any tips you would share on getting people to see the value of this?
Yeah, I would focus on your pain points. Focus on your needs. I went in with many pain points. Fortunately, the SPC training was the right forum because we had SPCT candidates in the room. I think we had about 14 in the room. And after every break, I would just go to them for questions and just drill into like, who has done this, who has done this. I think that coming out of that was a convincing argument of, yes, we have pain points. We can address this with the framework.
Maybe I'd just like to add to what Don mentioned. To your point, I think Don is very right. Like when some of these, when the Agile was first introduced to us on the business side, we felt it was technically very heavy for us, like understanding RTs and SPs, and it was like,
New language.
New language for us, definitely, for sure. But what really worked for us was that our IT was able to translate that into business language. That's something that we understand. What we care for. I think that was a really transitionary moment for us that really made a big differentiation in terms of not just understanding this new method of doing it, but also navigating it through.
Thank you.
So how did you get the first teams on board? I mean, you got started, it has to be skepticism and this high visibility. I've been invited to be on this program. What was that like?
Well, I think we started by mapping out the value stream, which was an educational process in itself. When you sit down with your business customers, with your IT leadership, and you start to map out what is this order to revenue process. And it was amazing how, people that have been doing this for such a long time, when you start to put cards on the wall and really map out what the process is, a lot of things start to expose themselves. And what really came to a quick realization was the volume of systems that touched this value stream. Mm-hmm. And so we could have easily done what we used to do, and that was to try to boil the ocean. But what we decided to do was look at that value stream, and for the first PI, take a small section of that with a minimal number of teams to get the train going and to learn from that. And then the next PIs, we gradually layered on more teams and just kept on going.
How big was that first group?
8 teams, 90 people.
All right.
And total chaos first day of PI planning, and we expected that.
Could you talk us through the slide we're all looking at on the screen right now?
Oh, well, yeah.
So Richard led the first PI planning, which I think it's key for any organization starting out with SAFE, having somebody with the background. And Richard has been my mentor all along, and I mean throughout the whole process. So in PI1, as Richard said, we had about 8 teams, less than 100 people. And just like when we decided to launch SAFE and launch the O2R train, or the order to revenue train, everything was moving in light year speed. Mm-hmm. And it grew by the second PI, the team size doubled. Mm-hmm. Between the third and the fourth PI, the teams grew to 34 teams.
Wow.
And we were used to in-person PI planning in a large ballroom in India. And by the way, we weren't the only train. Oracle basically rented out the whole hotel and took every ballroom, and each ballroom had a train dedicated to it for their PI planning. And so we grew by light years ahead. And we knew quickly that we were stressing the framework.
Yep.
And this is where having Richard really helped, because he and I had many, many sessions doing PI planning meetings, as well as outside of it. And we knew we had a problem. But the teams were performing. So that was a good problem. And our management recognized that from their SAFE training that this is not what the framework had intended. And the only mandate they gave was don't disrupt progress. Oh, that's easy to say, right?
So you got 34 teams.
Yeah.
That's a little bit bigger than your average train.
Yes.
Well, maybe not for everybody, but so how did you figure that out? That's not a simple problem to deconstruct, and that could fall on its face if you're not careful.
Yeah, so I think the value of meeting in person and just having shop talk and just talking it through, it didn't evolve overnight, but the answer was sort of staring right in front of me, and I just could not describe it until Richard and I, one day we were at our headquarters location, and we just went in front of a whiteboard and say, let's redraw this problem again. Let's restate the problem, and I said, the light bulb came on immediately. And that was, hey, from my military background, from my days in the Army, and by the way, I want to maybe give a shout out to those who have served and family members. And to those who are still serving, I recognize there may be some from the DoD community or the government community, so thank you for your service. So the answer, which was, for those of you who may done some sort of work similar to this, where in the military, it's all about formations. It's all about forces, it's arraying your forces to meet the mission. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this going, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to array, we're trying to task organize our teams in a manageable grouping so that we can continue to lead the train at the same time, not disrupting them. So to them, it's normal business as normal. For us as RTEs and STEs, how do we effectively lead the train? That was, so
where'd you land?
So we landed with something we call sub-art. And I know it's not a safe term, it's just something we came up with.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
We're gonna check on that with the framework team. And
So
7.0.
back to what Richard said about the value stream, the order to revenue value stream. And by the way, it's a textbook value stream, how SAFe describes it. You got a trigger, which is an order, the end of the process, which is recognizing revenue.
Yeah.
And all the systems in between is the value stream, right? And so we look at our teams and our, like, the natural groupings is we have one group that handles all the orders from the different systems and then ending with the order management team that integrated the orders. Well, that's one grouping. What's one sub-art? And then we have, and then continue on with the value stream from a flow standpoint, we had the steps or the processes where we have to fulfill the orders. Now, in the hardware business, that's very apparent. You have to fulfill orders, either fulfill it, manufacture it, drop ship, or whatever it is. In the cloud business, you provision your customer subscriptions. So there is this natural step in the middle.
Orders, fulfillment.
Fulfillment.
Yep.
And then the last piece of it is the finance piece, from invoicing to ledgers, general ledger.
Okay.
So that became the sub-arts. And then we had a fourth one, which is data migration, integrations, education, or smaller lines of business. So that picture, if you don't mind bringing it
Oh,
up.
if you could put that photo back up, yeah.
So the picture that we that's on the screen there,
There we go.
it came from one of our PI planning. And all of you know this, right? It's not a single program board. It consists of 4 program boards. And actually, we ran out of real estate in the war room because you can consider every team had their own team boards, right? And so we literally ran out of space. And then notice the dependencies with the red yarns that span multiple boards. In fact, a funny moment was, I think, Richard, you tell it about.
Yeah, so this is where we quickly learned the lesson that you only have one person come up and put the sticky notes on the board. And this is no word of a lie. We actually had one person that ended up being tied to the board because there were so many people interacting with the board. Because this person wasn't getting out of another team's way, they went and just put a sticky note and a piece of string around them.
That's nice.
That is an
Richard, I
unacceptable-
want to ask Richard a very quick follow-up question. You've obviously done this sort of implementation before, but it sounds like you've been on a learning journey as well, based on what happened here.
Absolutely. One of the things, as the train started to grow, what we started to see during the team breakouts was the lack of conversations that were happening between the teams, because everybody was so laser focused on what they needed to do in their team breakouts. So, and shout out to Mike Schwartz if he's here. He was working with Oracle at the time, and we had a few conversations, and I threw this problem out to him, and he said, "Hey, why don't you try this concept of speed dating? It's something that we've done in our area." And the speed dating concept was a great way for us to get teams and force them to go and introduce themselves, because as you can imagine, going up to 34 teams, there's a lot of people in the room. We had to sort of figure out a way to introduce these teams to each other and get an understanding of what dependencies may exist between the teams.
Nice.
And it was an interesting, the first experience was interesting. We had some decent feedback. We also had some learnings from that. But as we went from each PI to the next PI, it just got better and better and better. And it turned into a process now where a lot of our other trains have adopted that process.
If I may, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
So one of our pain points from the supply chain implementation was dependencies, as we all can understand. Dependencies and risks, how do we track those effectively to ensure that we have a good outcome? So the aha moment was when Richard introduced speed dating. And seeing all the teams in a synchronous fashion meet up, and they had a rhythm and a cycle where they had to move on to the next team. But a funny moment was when Richard introduced speed dating. The idea was for one team to go to the next ballroom, but they never came back. So we had to fix that problem.
They fell in love. It was that easy.
So I think we kind of heard the IT perspective, and you're now at 34 teams. Maninder, you had people on these teams. Tell me a little bit about what the business side perspective of this was. What did it feel like getting started, and kind of how did it pull you guys in?
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I think the key was for us the way this implementation was overall managed. It was evolving. There was a lot of collaboration. We were engaged right through the journey. We started small and gradually built on. There was a lot of open communication between IT and the business, that really set the stage for us to really build on it from there on. And we got insight, into the product quite early on. I think months before the implementation, that really made us, set to a stage wherein we can really convince our teams, make them adapt this change happily, because always, sometimes you have to really, manage the resistance from the teams, getting them ready, because this was a big change for us. So overall, I think it was the new method actually, provided us a stage to really collaborate and express ourselves better. And I think above all, there is an element of oneness to it. It really shifted our mindset from traditional finger pointing, to one, because now we are all talking the same language, right? Our goals were common. So it really helped a long way, I would say.
So did you feel like you had more influence over the design and how it turned out?
It did actually, So I mean, Don was saying, there was initial skepticism around, within the IT. There was an equal skepticism around even within the business side, So the concept of this code over documentation was actually initially unnerving for us. And I just mentioned to you, we were like, are they throwing us this technical jargon at us? Is it that the same thing that they want to do, just a new style of it? Maybe a new leader has come, All these things were, going in our mind. But I think slowly the discipline of PI structure, when reinforced daily in regular sessions, and we used to meet our IT business partners, and there was a good resource available, like in terms of training the team, learning opportunities that really enable the teams, to really adapt to these new ways of doing things.
I just want to build on that a little bit because, again, people in this room are faced with the business side of their organizations being a bit resistant to a lot of this new way of doing things. Any other tips you would share on facing up to that sort of resistance on the business side?
Yeah, I think I think the one single tip is that get your people on board the journey early on. I think the sooner they join, the better it is. I think. So there is no other way, because if there is a single factor, which is people, no technological transformation is possible without people. So for us, in particular, as we get started, it was important for us to get our organization aligned, enable our teams, and make sure that, we got confidence into the product which you're going to use. We identified our change actors early on. We have major roles, responsibilities defined for some of our key contributing groups. We have a corporate PMO office. Their job was like a traffic cops to us. They were like, they kept the lights on, making sure that through the implementation, there is a meticulous executive report out on what's the backlog, what more to do, and what's the end timeline. On the business side, our charter was very clearly defined. Our focus was defining our minimum viable product, what's our MVP. You cannot get everything on day one. So we have to really start and say, okay, this is the minimum, without which it is not acceptable to us, right? Getting our processes aligned, getting our teams aligned, getting our communication charter aligned. There was never an opportunity for us to test everything. So we really have to define materiality, like what is material to us, what is critical to us. And lastly, I think our IT partners, both Oracle Application Lab, which is Don Richard's team, as well as our product development organization, they kept their focus on tech requirements, making sure that they build the solution, making sure that the environments are ready for us to do the testings, because it's very important for us for business to gain confidence into the product. Yeah. And then eventually get ready for, the go live, incident management. They produce tons of dashboard for us to really monitor the success. And it was really, so this kind of a structure and engagement was really crucial, and actually that really set us to a success stage, I would say.
This is great, thank you.
If I could just quickly add to that too.
Yes.
I think back to your point about that, fighting that skepticism, one of the reasons we started small too was to invite some key stakeholders to come to the planning session and get exposed to that. And after the first planning session, they told 2 friends, and then they told 2 friends, and so on and so on and so on, right? It got to a point where it started to turn into a spectator sport, and we should have sold tickets because we would have been able to pay for part of the implementation. But the reality is success breeds success, and that success of the first PI planning, the second, it just continued on, and more people got involved. And it helped to break down the walls of confusion. You've heard about that in DevOps between IT or between development and operations. Well, the walls of confusion existed too between the business and IT. And having them part of the planning, really gave us from an IT perspective an idea of the challenges the business was going through, but it also gave the business an understanding of the challenges we went through trying to deliver the solutions to them on time with the highest quality and with the highest morale.
Yep.
So let me just kind of sum up where we're at here. I've done 38 teams at the end, so nearly 400 people, right? And a room full of tables, and you can't tell who's on, it's a mix. Let's talk about results. I mean, this is 2 years, 300 or 400 people. Yeah. That's a big investment for Oracle, big outcome expected. How did it feel at the end? Did you get the product that you wanted, or how did it turn out?
So let me give you a backdrop to it. So you see, at Oracle, the transformation, our transformation foundation is backed by 4 principles: streamline, automate, empower, and delight. So when we say streamline, basically nothing but, you really map your value stream, identify all non-value added opportunities, and then ruthlessly prioritize and get rid of them. Automate, you simply look for end-to-end automation. Don't compromise on what you can deliver. And then empower, basically, empowering your team. Make sure that they have a say in the game. And lastly, but not the least, do everything that can really, ignite a positive experience for your end customer, because at the end of the day, you're doing it for your customers.
Yeah.
So it was very, very important for us to get these things right on day one. So in readiness for the move to cloud, our team embarked on purposeful abandonment. We streamline processes, standardize our operations, put everything to global standards. That actually reduced, our need for entry, validation, reporting. That in turn simplified our automation roadmap.
So what kind of results did you achieve?
So what it actually at the end of the day, what it did for us was, we saw significant improvement in our order velocity and data quality, which benefited our customer in terms of ease of doing business. It really improved our team's usability and productivity. That improved our employee experience. Our touchless ordering gone up by 15%. Today, 95% of our cloud orders do not require a person to, facilitate. It get auto processed in no time. We were able to churn auto invoices. Our collections productivity gone up. If it boiled down to overall team's productivity improvement by 10%.
10%.
And net results, if you see, I'm sure all of you must have heard that we are able to today close our books in less than 10 days, which is 21 days faster than an average Fortune 500.
And a quick follow-up, even with that level of success, and it's good enough to get a round of applause, do you believe you got a better solution design because of how you were involved? Could it have been even better if you'd got involved in a different way?
Well, I think, okay. So see, for us today, our teams definitely are liking it.
Yeah.
We find it transparent, efficient, and effective. We are liking the madness to this method. before Agile, before SAFe, conventionally when we used to follow our waterfall method, our experience was very, very different. I think as Don was saying, we kick off a project with the big bang workshop. All of us, IT, business, everybody will group together in the workshop. IT will start with talking to us through their solution approach, and we on the business side will spend days and days to explain the business requirement of our existing systems, just to let them know, hey, we want to make sure that you don't break this out, right? It was very, very laborious and exhaustive, and at the end of the day, we will all come out keeping our fingers crossed, assuming we will get everything, not knowing when we will get it, how it will look like, and then at the end, like 6 months down the line, when you get it, you understand that now the goalpost has changed and now you have to redo everything, It is very different now. We get into these PA planning with the requirement. We have extensive discussions across the value stream. Like I manage, revenue cycle for Oracle. So a transaction that hits a contracting side of the house has to go through all of these applications: quoting, order processing, fulfillment, invoicing, general ledger, right? So you have to make sure that all of these are well mapped. What happens in these PA sessions is that you get commitment and timelines from your business partners. You get to understand why things are working and why things are not. So I think there is overall a lot of awareness and transparency around what we are thinking. So it's really making a difference for us.
Thank you for that.
So I just want to digest this for a second, because Oracle is huge. I mean, you just said 15% improvement in transactions touchless, millions of transactions a year, right?
Yes.
You got thousands of people in this operation doing this kind of work. So 10% productivity on 2,000 people is 200 humans you got to create more value from. I mean, that's just, the magnitude of that just kills me, right?
Yeah, just to kind of, explain, this audience, the scale of this implementation. So we do business in 175 countries. We have 24 million contracts. We manage 2 million customers. We are having 7 lines of businesses, 1 million transactions, and roughly 41 billion in the bookings. So when we talk about the efficiency that gained through this process, we are talking about a significantly high number of volumes. And cloud, I think we are accelerating extensively well on cloud. We are getting an extensive response from the market. Seeing 95% of orders go touchless, it means huge difference even to our customers.
So those are brilliant business results. Let's talk about the people side. So after this is all said and done, the stakeholders that you were skeptical in the beginning, how do they feel now?
Well, there's actually, our journey with SAFe had not stopped with the 34 teams that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, so our teams grew eventually to 38 teams. At some point in doing an implementation, we had to synchronize 6 other trains into the entire program. So we had another problem, and that was scaling to synchronize across 6 trains. We also made a conscious decision to form a solution train, but we didn't introduce all the fanfare, and we had all the best practices of a solution train. So that we can integrate all the solutions together so we can actually deliver the solutions in time. As far as the people is concerned, all the RTEs in the room can understand. PI planning is very, very stressful. Those 2 days, I think one of the vendors had a PI planning ulcer kit or whatever it is. Right? I wish I had that, right? And as an RTE, you're part of the rhythm. And in one particular PI planning, we have finished our final plan review, and we did our confidence vote. The stress level was still kind of high, right? And then came the retrospective, and we were just like, let's just get this done. We're all tired, right? And we did in India, so folks were staying up really late for the folks at local India. And then we had this one skeptical manager, and she stood up. We thought, okay, it's going to be another constructive criticism. We'll take it, put it on the board, and we'll improve on it. And she said, this PI planning works. And we weren't expecting that.
Wow.
It was a mic drop moment. And the room was silent, like, wow, okay? And she said, PI planning is truly the heartbeat of SAFe. So that's a testament to the framework.
Yep.
And also it indicated our teams,
Well, a testament to you guys, right?
yeah.
I mean,
The teams, you could tell the teams they were self-organizing internally, and they had gelled and they had synchronized. And then the other people moment is the development side, their morale with this framework, better engagement with the business, more frequent feedback, better feedback. Overall, they also had a better experience.
And Richard, just hearing Don there, this is a human story as well.
100%, right? And one of we'd finish PI planning, and engineers would walk up to us after the planning session, and one that really sort of touched my heart was an engineer that had been with Oracle for 23 years, and she had never met the people that she'd been working with for 23 years, had only met them through video conferencing or teleconferencing.
Right.
And this was her first time really engaging with those teams in a face-to-face setting, and that just really elevated everybody. But it was also the epiphanies, when engineers come up and they say just the simple thing of these PI briefings, right? Having the business tell their story on what's important to them, and for the engineers to connect with that and all of a sudden realize the work that they're doing. Maybe it's a simple integration between two systems, an API call, but the impact that their work has on the system, on the value of the system and what it's delivering to the customer, you can't put a price on that.
Amazing. Thank you.
so I think brilliant story, brilliant outcomes. I always love these stories because there's always a really great business logical outcome. There's always a really interesting human outcome. For the room, after looking back at this, what insights would you like to share? What should people know about what they're getting into here? Something of that scale, something of that complexity. What advice do you have?
Well, first of all, the RTEs in the room, take care of yourself. It's a hard job. As servant leaders,
Good advice.
We understand our role, right? And at the end of the day, you are the leaders. One of the moments I value the most with in-person PI planning is Richard and I, we hit the hotel lounge, not because, just because we just needed space to unwind. I had a team of RTEs under me that managed the sub-arts, and together, all the RTEs of all the trains gradually, made the hotel lounge, the meeting place. It was a place for us to share, break bread, eat whatever it was, just to relax and unwind for the next day. You need that time for yourself, and you need that professional and social bonding time. It's critical for the success of your train or your solution train. Start small. I think we all understand that concept. Start small. With the O2R implementation, there was tremendous pressure to move fast and faster, and learn to advise your leaders. There's a right way, and there's probably not a right way of doing things. This sounds cliche, but I believe the SAFe principles work. Mm-hmm. Every time I had a problem, Richard and I would talk, and we would refer to one of the SAFe principles. In fact, I think we joked recently, we didn't know if Dean thought, the principles would be so enduring that, and they are by design. I think that's just
I have a quick question, because obviously we're talking now about the after effect of all of this incredibly successful work. This was a big push for you at first. My question is the reverse happening now? Is there a pull? Are you getting calls from other areas of the business for the information, for the key to this success?
I'll start one thing. I think, and I'll turn this over to Richard. Yes, there is a big pull. We are endeavoring on another initiative, which is to remap our value stream. As Richard mentioned, remapped the order to revenue value stream about 4 years ago, and the business has seen the success. The group that Maninder mentioned, the corporate system PMO team, they see the success, and they are an integral partner with our group, and so they are welcoming the continuous improvement. Richard, you want to take over?
Yeah, and I think it's the principles are key. The value stream mapping, it's not a one and done process. You have to continue to do that. To your point though, we are getting a lot of calls from outside of OAL. And we've expanded our training now, so we offer SAFe training throughout all of Oracle. And it's it's from a training perspective, it's become a beast to manage,
I'm
but
sure.
but we love what we do, right? And we're passionate about it. But there's a lot of interest in expanding SAFE.
And
Maninder, are you going to go back? I mean, the old way, the new way, which way is the way you want to
We
go?
definitely not going back, that's for sure. As I said, I think this is the only thing that we know. I mean, we are seeing a tremendous value, in getting to know your product early. I think that is really making a huge difference for us. And also to add to your, to your question around, from learning from our journey. I think the key for us is that, from the business side also, it's very important for you to define what you really need, what you cannot compromise with. So having that minimum viable is extremely critical. It is also important that you map your end-to-end critical flows, because I think you would not have a time and energy, to do everything. So you really have to figure it out a way what is more crucial for you, and then map it that way. And then most importantly, you need to enable your teams. You need to make sure that their desks are free, so that way they focus on their job. We are finding it valuable because we invested in our teams, and we made sure that they had right resources available to them, they have right support available to them, and it really turned out, in favor for us.
Lovely.
So something strikes me about this conversation. We talk a lot about the IT perspective and the business perspective. How does that feel now? Is it still IT in business?
No, it's not. I mean, I think we turned the corner, many PIs ago. We're one team, and maybe a vignette that most of you would have. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
I think a vignette that most of you would resonate with is seeing a senior leader, a vice president, a senior director sitting in the same table with the developers. I mean, that's the ideal state, right?
It's ideal.
And that is at the train level, at the team level, and it's all the way at the corporate level. We are, SAFE is entrenched at every level within our organization. We all speak the same language now. When the business asks for backlog, it's the same definition, backlog. When they ask for progress, it's the same progress that we give consistently. So we're definitely one team.
Yeah, I think what SAFE has done actually for us in Oracle is that it has really blurred the line between business and IT.
Yeah.
Now we not just talk the same language, but we look at things with the same vision. And I think that is really enabling the organization positively, because I think our actions really, speak louder than, what we tell people otherwise, So when you see senior leaders in the team working together, the teams respond very positively in that.
And if just one point I want to, we had tension before.
Yep.
Between the business and IT. And we have now healthy tension, right? We have groups that are challenging each other now, but the conversations are much richer and healthier now.
Nice.
So
Now,
no
our time
longer-
is almost up, so
Yep.
I was going to close with asking each of you, 30 seconds maximum, to share with the audience your top final tip. One tip for continued success based on everything you've been through and what, of course, you've got still to come. If we're able to do that, Mike, are you happy with that? Let's
Great.
go for it. So, Maninder, why don't you start?
Yeah, continue to innovate. Don't stop yourself. I think that's the way, because environment is changing, technology is changing. You need to continue to find new ways of doing things. Don't stick on. What is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. So continue to innovate, and invest in people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that, protect the IP iteration, right? That innovation and planning iteration, right? Yeah. And, I think one of the critical things that our leadership, in fact, here I go on my principles here. Principle number one, right? Taking an economic view, we had to make some trade-offs, right? I'm a big fan of the 10-week PIs. They're simple, right? It's easy math. But we had to look at the cost to flying everybody to one location, right? Especially when we're getting to, 34 teams, 300 plus people, right? There's a cost to that. So we started to look at principle number one and some of the economic trade-offs we had to make. So instead of 5 PI planning events, we went to 4. We had to make a trade-off on fast integrated learning cycles, but it was a decision we had to make. But we did that for another reason too. We had some teams that if we went to a 10-week cycle, they would not have been able to do the innovation and planning iteration properly. So we built that cadence in to allow for that.
Thank you, Richard.
So my final comment is we ended up with a train with 38 teams, 380 people, a solution train with 6 trains total, 750 people. It was a very, very large effort. My message to, my advice to all of you is that don't take shortcuts in building your teams and your train. Build the foundational knowledge. They will have payoffs in the future. If you take shortcuts, then they're not going to follow through the framework. And build those competencies.
And Mark, my final observation?
Yes.
It's not IT, it's not business, it's just Oracle.
Outstanding. Mike, thank you. Maninder Bedi, Richard Jack, Don Kwan, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great. Thank you.